Hello and all, welcome to the Galaxy Man Show. I am here with this incredible artist for the very first guest of this brand new week, with the incredible artist known as Jennifer Alvarado. Everyone, please welcome Jennifer on the show for the Galaxy Man Show today. And yeah, here's Jennifer.
Hi.
Hi Jennifer, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. I just want to say first up, thank you so much for taking the time to join my show. It is such an incredible pleasure having you on the show for today. To people that don't know who you are, Jennifer, if you can give like a bit of backstory about yourself, and then we'll dive right into the questions.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jennifer Alvarado. I am a singer-songwriter from Vail, North Carolina. Um, I've been doing music for pretty much most of my life. I started writing when I was about four. Started singing when I was around seven with choir and church and that kind of stuff. And then went into contemporary Christian music. Started out with that. That was my first album back in 2015 was Contemporary Christian. And during 2020, sort of made a change. I had been writing, commercial songs and pop country songs forever, but didn't really start releasing them until 2020, and it kind of took off. And so that's what I've been focusing on for the past 3 years or so is the pop country stuff. And still worship leader, still worship pastor, but yeah, but doing the secular thing too and the songwriting.
So we'll dive right into the questions now, Jennifer. So for my very first question, so you've created amazing original songs, and for the first original song I'm going to mention is "Love Came Down." Like, what was it like
Oh,
creating this song, and what's the meaning behind "Love Came Down"?
yeah, so that was my first Christmas song. So I released that back in December. And actually, I had written that song for a church project that was released in 2016, 2018. I can't remember. Everything runs together. I think it was 2018 it came out. And I had written that solely for the Christian for the church project. And basically, it's about the fact that it wasn't just Jesus being sent to earth to die on a cross for our sins, but it was also just the fact of like that amazing love, like what an act of love that was. And that was God's way of showing his love was to send his son to earth to be able to take that sin eventually for us. So, yeah, that's really where the title came from. That's what the story is behind it. It's really the Christmas story.
So on to my very next question. So you've also created an original song called "Curious."
Yes.
Amazing title, by the way. What was
Thank
it
you.
like? No, you're very welcome. So what was it like creating this one, and what's the meaning behind "Curious"?
So curious, I wrote back in December of 2021. Yeah, I have to think about what year we're in. But I wrote that in December 2021, and really, it's the human element of you've met somebody, maybe you've been friends with somebody, and there's always that curiosity that comes with it of like if you have that attraction to them of okay, well, what if we do pursue this? What if this is more than friendship, but we're scared to go there? And so it really is about what happens if you decide to go on those feelings and react to those feelings and actually pursue the relationship. And it's really about the curiosity that comes like you're curious about that person, you want to know more about them, but you're also scared to death.
So on to my very next question. So you've also
Yeah.
created an original song called "Filthy Water." What was it like creating this one, and what's the meaning behind "Filthy Water"?
Yeah. So I had been going through a really difficult time. So going back to 2020, obviously 2020 was difficult for a lot of people. But I had come out of a season where I had been pursuing church ministry and being a worship leader and all of that, and had just a couple really bad scenarios and things happen that really kind of made me take a hard left to what I was doing and really made me start questioning, like, what are you doing? Like, what is your role in music? Like, should you be doing this anymore? And um, essentially, that song is from a place of hurt. It's from a place of church hurt, especially, and just that it's the idea that anything that happens in the dark is eventually going to be brought to light, and like justice will be served. Like, it's not your battle to always fight, because eventually justice will come about, and you don't have to fight that. You just need to get through it the best you can, and know that, like, you will get through it and there is another side to it. So that's really where it came from. I've always heard the saying, "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater," meaning, don't throw the good out with the bad too. And in the case of filthy water, it was like, no, sometimes the whole thing is just, it needs to be thrown out and you need to leave the situation. And so that's really where the song came from.
So on to my very next question. So you've also created an original song called Catfish. What was it like creating Catfish, and what's the meaning behind Catfish?
Yeah, so it's kind of got a double meaning. Growing up, I used to fish, and I love to fish. It's a great way of just kind of just relaxing and getting out of your head. And but I've always been told about catfish that they make noises. They make weird little noises to kind of throw off their attacker or whatever, and make you think that it's something else that's there. And so it has that meaning, but I was also going on just the pop culture meaning of it, of, everybody can be whoever they want to be on social media and whatever. And so, especially when you're out in the dating world, you get a lot of people who aren't quite what they made themselves out to be. And so that's really what it's about. It's going back to that whole, like, MTV show of catfish and dating. And yeah, that song I had written coming out of, like, a period of time of just, like, not being able to write, had a lot of writer's block, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to write this song. And it was actually my junk pile. And I ended up taking it to my producer, and I was like, here's this song. Like, I don't think I'm going to do anything with it. And he was like, no, we need to do something with this. So, yeah.
To answer my very next question, so you've also created a song called Not Yet. What was it like creating this one, and what's the meaning behind Not Yet?
Um, I'm not sure about Not Yet. So I will say there's a few songs that are kind of waiting to be done. I'm working on part two of my Songbird project.
Okay.
And so with that, uh, this part of the project, so part one really focused on this tumultuous, like, relationship of trying to figure out where you stood with somebody, and then you're left with just heartbreak, and really questioning yourself and how it all played out. And then part two that I'm currently in the studio working on is really about just finding yourself and moving forward, with kind of getting your voice back and being able to see that it's not all your fault. It was never all your fault. And just coming from a place of, like, vulnerability and power.
So on to my very next question. So what made you decide as a person, and especially as an artist, to get into singing in the first place?
So for me, music has just always kind of been there. It's always been part of my life. My grandmother used to write journals. She kept a journal because she kept me a lot when I was growing up. And in her journals, like, it talks about, even before I could speak, I was singing and coming up with little, like, melodies and stuff like that. So I think it's always been just innately there. It's how I express myself. But my grandfather, he played several instruments, and he would write little instrumental songs and stuff like that. And so I was always around that and loved going to his house and listening to him play. And I think too, from probably 3 or 4 years old when I realized that people actually sang for a living. Like, I remember listening to Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, all of the big voices, and thinking, like, this is what I want to do. So I think it's just always been innately there. It's always been what I thought I was supposed to be doing.
So on to my very next question about performing and singing. What's your like main favorite part about performing in front of crowds? Like as an artist, like what's the favorite part about that?
I think for me, like music connects us, and you may not know somebody's story. They may not know your full story, but what I've always loved about music is somebody can say something and it hits a nerve, or it does something. There's some strike of emotion there. And that's what I always loved growing up and hearing songs from other people and artists, um, was that I felt like somebody else knew what I was going through. Even if the story's not exactly the same, they still understood on just a human level. And so I think that that's probably my favorite part, is just being able to connect with people and them coming up after and being like, hey, that song, like, this is what it really meant to me. This is what it was saying. Like, I didn't know anybody else had like thought that or gone through that. And so to me, that's the best thing, is to be able to extend that like hand to somebody else.
So on to my very next question. So what has been your like all-time favorite cover song to perform and why?
Hmm. Um, Honestly, I'm probably between two. Strawberry Wine is one that I've just always loved, by Dina Carter. I love singing that song. It's very nostalgic, and usually people are singing along. Um, and then Ironic by Alanis Morissette. Like, I love that song. I love what it's about because it's so just the human element. Um, and it's very tongue in cheek, and but that's another one where people are just like, yes, like it strikes something within them and they remember that song. So those are probably my two.
So on to my very next question. So if you could work with any top three music artists in the music industry, who would they be and why?
Mm. um my number one will always be Reba. Like, I spent so many years looking up to her, and I still do. I mean, just from a standpoint of professionalism and what she's brought to this industry, and the fact that she's able to go from this project to this project and cross all these different boundaries. Like, she's a terrific businesswoman, and so I look up to that. So I would love to work with her at some point. Um, I think lyric wise, songwriter wise, probably Patty Griffin. I would love to work with her. I just think she has a way of saying things that nobody else can say the way she does. And it's so eloquent and simple all at the same time. Um, hmm, one, I think of one more. There's so many people, and so, but I think just I want to say Taylor Swift,
Okay.
only because like she's a marketing genius. Like, she could market anything. She could market snow, just and it would be fine that it melts in a couple minutes after it comes inside. Like, I don't know. Like, she's able to market anything. And so I think just the business side is something that, if you have that business side, like, yes, you need a good song, you need the talent and all of that, but I think too, it's all in how you market yourself too. And that really can like take you from here to here in so many different ways. So yeah, I think she's just a marketing genius. Her or Garth Brooks, either one of them.
So on to my very next question. So if you could go anywhere on tour, like take your music to any place, any country in the world, like where would you want to go to and why?
Hmm. I'm between Canada and Germany, because both of those have done really well listener wise. Of course, like, I would love to go to Australia because it's Australia. And same thing with like the UK, but Canada and Germany, I don't know. I think because they have done so well, like I would like to just go over there and see what's going on and why they either like me or hate me, but either way, they're listening.
So on to my very next question. So what advice would you give to upcoming artists that want to get into singing? And yeah, what advice would you give them?
Keep going. I know that's very cliche and probably simple, but you're going to have a lot more just times of rejection and feeling lost than you're going to have those mountaintop moments. But it really is in the valleys that you figure out what you're doing and you figure out who's there with you and who supports you and just what all this means. And so keep going. Don't let one bad review or one person saying something negative to you stop you. Like if you have a song in your heart to sing, then it needs to be heard and you just have to keep pushing and keep going.
So on to my very next question. So if now Jennifer could talk to younger Jennifer looking back over your time in the career of music industry, like what would you give, like what advice would you give to your younger self and why?
Um, I think the biggest thing would be don't forget why you ever started. Because again, you can very easily lose your purpose in this, or forget your purpose, and you can start to listen to all the chaos and the noise, and start kind of changing how you approach things. And it's great to listen to some of that as a learning thing, and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. But what doesn't work is when you start trying to be somebody you're not and trying to copy something that already exists. Because the fact is, it's that originality, it's that authenticity that people connect to. And so I think that would be the biggest thing. Don't be afraid to use your voice. And um, even when somebody says something hurtful, know that, that's one opinion. And
So on to my very next question. So what are like the positive and negative side into the whole music industry? And how do you get through those like negative moments as an artist?
um, I think the positives are, especially with indie artists. One thing that I've learned, there's a lot more opportunities out there than sometimes we think there are. And you don't have to sit there and worry about losing your chance or whatever. It's a matter of still just working and learning things and continuing to meet people. And so you should never hate on somebody else because maybe they got an opportunity or whatever. Because I truly believe that there's enough out there for everybody to be successful and to do this. I know that that's probably going to get mixed reviews, but that's just my thoughts. Like if the opportunity is supposed to happen for you, it will, as long as you're working for it and you're remaining humble and you're not taking things for granted. Um, with that said, I think the negatives, I think that there are people that take things for granted. I think that we are such a disposable society sometimes that so much is lost. And what I mean by that is like, I think back to when I was growing up and you would have to wait on like a CD or something to come out of the new artist. And then like it was like this whole thing. You would go get it at the record store, wherever, Target, wherever, and you would play every single song and listen to it. And now it's like, okay, people may listen to two of the songs on the album or whatever, and the rest of it is just lost in translation. And so I feel like there's pieces that are just lost of people's stories because we're so fast paced and we're on to the next thing as soon as we hear this one. Instead of really just taking a moment um, to listen to people's stories. I think the other thing is we get in a rut, like especially with mainstream music. There's certain trends that happen, and if you aren't in that trend in that moment, then you may as well be invisible. And so I think we get into these trends of like, oh, well, this works, and so let's all copy this. And then the market gets oversaturated with this, and then we're on to the next thing. And it's like, let's just be original. Like, it's great to go with those little nuances and trends. Like I get it, but at the same time, don't do it just to sell records and make money. I don't know. So I think those are things. Like I think that there's such a emphasis on money making, and I realize that that's the world, but just there's such an emphasis on money making and the commercial side of things that sometimes you lose the passion of the creativity and the art.
So I'll see my very last question. So, like, what's next for you, like, for the rest of 2023 onwards? Like, anything that you like to announce on the show, Jennifer?
Yeah. So in a couple weeks in May, I'm actually doing a Cali tour. So I'm starting out in Pacifica on the 13th of May, and then I'm going down to Solving on the 14th. And then I will be in LA for a week. And I'm finishing up with playing the Viper Room Lounge on the 20th. So I will have, links out there for shows. I would love it if people are in that area, or if you're in the North Carolina area or wherever, just come out to a show. I'd love to meet you. The other thing is, like I said, I'm working on part 2 of Songbird. Hopefully that'll be out early summer. And then I also have another project that everything's written. I just got to get in the studio. And then I'm going to finish up the end of the year with a Christmas project. So, yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Jennifer, for taking the time to join my show. It has been such an incredible pleasure having you on. Everyone, definitely go to support Jennifer and her incredible music career ahead as an artist. Jennifer, do you have like any last final like thoughts or anything that you like to share to people on the show?
Yeah, I mean, just be kind and connect with music, if nothing else.
Time you talk to me, light a match and watch it burn. Soon the table's gonna turn. You think you are the man, talking with your dirty hands, but karma will make it right. The things you took away in spite. Ooh, don't you know? Ooh, the truth is gonna show.